Part 10. Resolution 2. Open questions. The sunshine, after Caleb, wasn't a quiet accusation anymore, but a broadcast, a constant, low-level hum overlaid with static. It warmed her skin, yes, but the chill now came from recognizing the texture of the warmth itself. A familiar fuzziness that had seeped into the very fabric of her perception. 3 months, 3 lifetimes spent recalibrating to a world where Caleb's echoes weren't intrusions, but ingredients. She was at the laundromat again. The cyclical torment strangely comforting. The rotating drums were miniature galaxies, swirling with discarded cells and half-remembered scents. A woman in a floral dress, a riot of blues and greens, folded her towels with meticulous care, humming a tune Clara vaguely recognized. It wasn't their song, not exactly, but it felt like a cousin of it, sharing the same melancholic DNA. She didn't flinch, didn't catalog it in her notebook anymore. She just registered it. The old woman from before, the one who declared her book a bit melancholic for such sunshine, was there too, her face still indistinctly familiar. Today she held a chipped yellow mug, steam curling around her wrinkled face like a question mark. Clara found herself smiling back, a small gesture of acknowledgement. The woman returned the smile, and for a moment, Clara felt seen, not as Caleb's Clara, but simply as Clara. Overhead snippets swirled. Definitely need more fabric softener. A young man complained to his partner. Just like my mother used to say. Another woman murmured to her child. They weren't necessarily directed at her, these fragments of conversation, yet they resonated with Caleb's cadence. He had an uncanny knack for absorbing phrases, recontextualizing them until they became uniquely his and then, somehow, uniquely hers. It was less about stolen phrases now and more about shared atmospheric pressure. They all breathed the same air of subtle performance. She remembered testing him once, during a particularly quiet Sunday afternoon walk in Prospect Park. She'd casually dropped a reference to Neil Young's Harvest Moon, a song they'd only listened to twice, and he'd responded with a knowing nod and a perfectly timed observation about its bittersweet harvest. Now she wondered if she had initially absorbed it from him, if their intimacy had been less about mutual discovery and more about mirrored consumption. Did she always love Neil Young? Or did Caleb simply refine a preference she hadn't fully articulated? Had she always folded her sheets corner to corner like this, or had she unconsciously adopted his habit? Outside the laundromat window, bright yellow wildflowers bloomed amidst the concrete gray. They weren't as pristine as those in curated bouquets. Some were slightly bent, petals frayed at the edges. They looked honest. Authenticity wasn't about escaping imperfection. It was about embracing the static within the signal. A teenager walked past wearing headphones, scrolling through Instagram. He paused in front of the laundromat window and glanced at Clara before continuing on his way. His expression wasn't hostile or knowing. It was simply observational, as if she were part of the background scenery, another piece of urban texture to be digitally cataloged and potentially reshared. A friend of hers had tagged her in a photo from Caleb's feed last week. Clara and Sparrow. It read, already positioning her within his narrative arc even after he was gone. Clara smiled back at the teenager, but this time there was hesitation, a beat between recognition and response. Was this comfort or merely adaptation? Was it freedom or just another form of performance? Then she heard it clear as a bell. A young woman folding laundry said to her friend, "Oh, it really is Sparrow, isn't it?" Referencing Caleb's pet name for her. Not accusatory, merely observational, accepting. Earlier that day, someone at the coffee shop had complimented her on wearing Caleb's favorite shade of blue. A few weeks ago, the barista had asked if she was holding up okay, as if everyone knew their story, their sorrow, as if Caleb's presence still lingered like an afterimage on everything she did. Clara laughed, letting out sound that had been lodged in throat for weeks. It wasn't anger or frustration coloring. It was acceptance, a fragile thing, balanced precariously on years of shared history. The sunshine streamed through the window, painting everything in hazy yellow light. The chipped mug, wildflowers, faces blending together, creating new forms. It tasted like copper and honey still, but no longer chilled bone. It warmed it, infused it with energy, the energy needed to keep absorbing, keep navigating, keep being. What did it mean for identity when everything felt borrowed? Could true connection exist amidst perpetual surveillance? How do you find meaning in a world saturated with noise? The questions hung suspended in the static-filled air like dust motes dancing in sunbeams. There were no definitive answers, only ongoing negotiations between self and surroundings. A constant recalibration within an endless broadcast. Were we ever truly original or simply exquisite arrangements of borrowed parts? Clara smiled at women folding towels, recognizing small flutter familiarity behind friendly gaze. The static continued its low hum, a soundtrack to her new calibration. And for first time since Caleb left, she embraced sound of it all. Her smile was small, wistful, a tiny wrinkle forming at the corner of one eye, suggesting layers beneath surface acceptance.